Hello, I'm Mass, and welcome to Bonk Table. This is another Conquest battle report. Today, I'm going to be playing 100 Kingdoms into Wadrhun, and my 100 Kingdoms list that I'm playing is all horse. No foot shall touch the ground. That was the goal of the list, and with the release of the Ashen Dawn, you can fully do that. So, this list is going to showcase 100 Kingdoms light cavalry, medium cavalry, and heavy cavalry that are currently all released for 100 Kingdoms. And let me just walk you through the list, show you what I'm going to be playing before I go on to my opponent's list, the scenario we're going to play, the table, and then the actual battle report. So, with 100k and the changes that came in the May update, you can currently run two Warlords with the Dynastic Alliance rule. So I'm running Mounted Noble Lord and, scroll down a little bit, Prior Commander of the Crimson Tower. Those are my two Warlords. I'm also running in Veterans for my army rule. This is mainly because Household Knights start actually, get offensively capable once they get that Veterans onto them. So, for my Mounted Noble Lord, he's got Brutal Impact 2, Cleave 1, Impact 3 Shield. But the next kind of thing is what I'm really looking at, his Supremacy abilities, Heirlooms, and Masteries. So, Speed of Horse, it gives them +1 impact and re-rolling 6s on the impact to hit. All their impacts are going to go to 4, and then they're going to re-roll any of the 6s they roll during their impact. Faint's Roar gives you Glorious Charge, what is +1 to your Clash when you do your impacts, and Terrifying 1 when you do impacts. So, it says until end of round, but it's only there for the impact attacks. That's going to be really good for the Household Knights that the Mounted Noble Lord is going to be in. He also has the Tip of the Lance Mastery, which gives Wedge, and that will give you Cleave +1 when you make a successful charge. This Mounted Noble Lord is going to be in this 5 brick of Household Knights over here who are affected by Veterans. So they get +1 Clash for, getting a Standard Bearer and Tourney Champion. So that's why they're at Clash 3. So when they do their charge and they do their impacts with that Mounted Noble Lord, Faint's Roar is going to give them Clash +1, so they're going to go to Clash 4. Speed of Horse is going to give them rerolling 6s, so that's really good. Clash 4 rerolling 6s on your impact attacks, and you're doing 4 each, and there's going to be 5 of these guys plus the Mounted Noble Lord. That's really great. And then I'm doing Terrifying -1 or Terrifying 1, so the resolve of my opponent is going to be down by 1. So that's more damage. And then I got Tip of the Lance for that Wedge for that Cleave 1, so now their 5 attacks when they do their Clash are all going to have Cleave. And because it's Cleave +1, the Noble Lord's Weapon Master gives him Cleave 1. He'll be Cleave 2 for his 5 attacks. Overall, that combination there is a really good hammer that I have in the list. And it is a bunch of points, but it's just really effective for what it's doing. And there's a moment in this game where I actually just wipe out a unit of Wadrhun Veterans just on the impact attacks, and I was really happy about it because it was so effective. For my lights in the Mounted Noble Lord's Warband, I have 2 units of Mounted Squires. They got Standard Bearer and Court Palatine. They're just MSUs, so 3 stands. And they're also Veterans for that +1 Clash, going from Clash 2 to 3. Then they have the Court Palatine, which just makes them always Inspire, so they're always going to be attacking on 4. So if you charge in their Clash and maybe there's something a little bit left, you can just Clash and then charge again, or you can run around. These guys are really good just because they're movement 9 and they can really push up that reinforcement line. In this battle report, I was trying to use the reinforcement line a bunch just because of the table we were playing on, and also I wanted to try it out and see how effective it was, because a lot of the times it wasn't really that effective for me to play with the reinforcement line. And it was something I wanted to see and try out because the reinforcement line rules changed. And I'll kind of talk about that more once we hit the battle report. So yeah, there's my 2 units of Mounted Squires, my 1 big brick of Household Knights, and then I just have a regular brick of Household Knights with a free Standard Bearer. I ran out of points, so I couldn't Veteran this, but this is just 3 stands. They're Clash 2. Their job is really just to either score objectives, push up and score enemy zones, get in the way and be annoying. They're just there. I don't expect them to do any heavy lifting or actual work. Kind of similar to Mounted Squires. Mounted Squires, I'm really looking for ranged lights or easy to kill lights. My opponent's running a Hunting Pack, so that's a good unit for our Mounted Squires to fight. I'm looking to tie up Slingers and Hunters, and maybe potentially kill them. Like, that's what I'm going after. But once stuff gets like into that medium and heavy weight class, the mounted squires kind of fall off and start getting killed because they're just defense 2 with a shield. So they're just like defense 3, and if they ever get a hit in the side, you know, they're only going down defense 2, and cleave starts kicking in, they'll start dying really quick. Also, they're resolve 2, so that also kind of ends them pretty quick as well. My next warband with the prior commander of the Crimson Tower, I had 10 points left at the end of the list building process, so I just threw Disorienting Strikes on him because I was like, here you go, here's 10 points. His warband, he's running 2 units of Order of the Crimson Towers, 2 bricks of 3 with Standard Bearer, and then 2 units of Order of the Ashen Dawn, 2 bricks of 3 with Standard Bearer. I'm still reserved about Order of the Crimson Tower. They're still too expensive for what they're trying to do because they only have 4 impacts at Brutal Impact 2 on Clash 3. Like, maybe if they had the shock rule, maybe like they're not really getting a ton of damage out. I find like there's a couple times where I charge with them and I rolled my 12 attacks with the MSU unit, like without the order, like the one without the prior commander who's in it, charged some raptors, and I rolled my 10 attacks and I only made 2 successes, so it's like, sweet. Or not my 10 attacks, my 12 attacks, I only got 2 successes, so it's even better. So, I don't know, I find Order of the Crimson Tower works well when you get to about 5 or 6 stands of them. You put Oliphane's Roar on them, but you're buying Oliphane's Roar for no longer Terrifying +1 because it's changed to Terrifying 1, and you're only paying for it for that Clash bonus. But Household Knights kind of do it better because they get the bonus of the Terrifying, they get the bonus of the Clash, and they get to reroll 6s from the Supremacy ability. So Household Knights are kind of taking the job of the Order of the Crimson Tower. Like, a souped up unit of Household Knights is doing more impact and work than the Order of the Crimson Tower. Like, that's what I'm kind of finding with Order of the Crimson Tower. They got Wedge, so, you know, if they ever make that charge, they can, and they do a charge clash, they get that cleave 1, what's really nice, especially because they have 5 attacks each. But because they're movement 7 and they don't have that tourney champion to get +2 movement when they charge, it's rough. Like, it's harder to get to and use. Then we have Order of the Ashen Dawn. This unit, this is the unit. This unit is fantastic. Blessed, Fearless, Cleave 1, Impact 3, Wedge. Like, this unit is your tank anvil unit for 100 Kingdoms. Like, they're movement 7, so they're a bit slow, but that's not the end of the world for what you're actually using them for. If you do get a charge off and do get that Wedge to go to Cleave 2, it's really nice, it's great, you feel it, but even just being Cleave 1 with your Resolve 5, Defense 4, and 6 wounds like defensive stats with your Cleave 1 and Blessed, and unless you are, you'll see it, there's like, at some point in the game, I have a Ashen Dawn guy with 1 wound left, and I'm like, alright, he's gonna use Blessed to reroll attack rolls because I'm pretty sure he's gonna die no matter what. Yeah, you kind of just use Blessed defensively just to keep them around, and it's infuriating for your opponent to deal with because of how good their stats are with that Resolve 5, that Defense 4, you're rerolling your defensive rolls. The thing about Blessed is you gotta time it right, so if you're thinking your opponent's gonna like hit you with a bunch of different shots or attack you with a bunch of different regiments, you want to use Blessed on the regiment that you think is going to do the most damage towards you, because you don't get to decide to use Blessed after you roll, you have to declare it before you roll your defenses. And also watch out for if you use your Bless on impact attacks or clashes, because it can only be used one for the other. It doesn't count for the whole combat. So if you get charged and you take impacts and you bless that, well, you're no longer getting your bless for the clash what's going to be coming into you. So watch out for that when you're playing them. But overall, this unit here is fantastic and carries a lot of weight. Like, they'll do a lot of heavy lifting and they will hold the line forever for you. I'm really happy with Order of the Ashen Dawn. When Order of Sealed Temple come out, like, I'm probably going to swap the Crimson Towers to those because the Household Knights are doing that heavy lifting already, and then just having like fast Sealed Temple running around and being fluid formation, that's going to annoy people. So also they're mediums, so that'll be fun. Get more mediums on the table. Overall, I like the list. This is kind of what it's doing. Thing I gotta talk about is Prior Commander's First Blessing. I forgot to select him as the Warlord, but First Blessing basically gives you Bless to everyone in the warband, so Order of the Crimson Tower, Order of Ashen Dawn. If they already have Blessed, then they get to pick Harden +1 or 1+1 attack. Most of the time I'm picking Harden +1, but sometimes I do pick +1 attack if I'm like, alright, I'm gonna kill you off. No, nothing else is gonna come for me, like, secure the kill kind of thing. With that, I'm gonna slow roll my rules for everyone, and you can read it and pause the video at your own desire. And yeah. Oh, you know what? Opportunist. This is a new thing on the Mounted Squires I forgot to talk about. It's, well, you can see right here, but you can reroll failed hit rolls when performing a clash or volley action against an enemy's flank or rear arc. I like this on Mounted Squires. It kind of emphasizes that they're your flanking cavalry and they're fast, they're hitting it, and they're going to get that additional damage output for rerolling those attack rolls when you do get them in the side or the back. I did not get to use it this game just because when you see the table, you'll understand pretty quickly why. But I'm happy that rule is on that unit. And just finish off rolling my rules, showing off my rules, doing something with the rules. Okay, them's the rules. With that, let's go check out my opponent's list. Here's my opponent's list. They've named it New Mommy, so you know that's great. What the New Mommy is, I don't know if it's the Matron Queen or his Warlord. What is the Chieftain? I am going to talk about the Chieftain first, who's down here, just because Shock Assault, the Supremacy ability, is just so good. Whenever this character is on the table and a regiment makes a charge, they get +1 clash until the end of the round. So your impact attacks +1 clash, your clash action +1 clash. Like, this fixes so much on Wadrhun and also pushes their damage output much higher because they're going to be higher on their clash. I think I get charged by an Apex Predator at one point, and it's like, alright, I charge, I got shock, so now I'm clash 4 on all my impacts. I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. And then it's like, okay, I'm clash 4 re-rolling 6s on all my clash attacks. I'm like, oh boy. So it's really good. It shores up I kind of want to say like a little bit of the problems with some of the Wadrhun stuff where like it might be low on clash. Like I know Warbred are like clash 2, but you can like burn out for +1 clash to 3, inspire to 4, and if you had shock, you would then be re-rolling 6s because you would be 2, burnout for +1, shock for +1, inspire for re-rolling 6s, and that right there is what kind of like you're gonna get your damage output. Like something could have cleave 5 or smite, but if it's clash 1, you're not too worried about it because it's not hitting to actually kill stuff. So fixing up your hit rolls is always nice. But back down here with the Chieftain. Warband cults, war, ways of war, violence of action. I believe that gives flurry to the unit and the character. Wasteland Adder might also do that. Let's just have a quick look here. Wasteland, that's a W, all the way at the bottom. All non-monster stands. Oh, against flank. So this just unit auto comes in. Okay, he's in a unit of veterans. They have Clash 3, that shock is going to get them up to 4, rerolling 6s. They have 5 attacks, this is really good. They're 6 wounds, okay, so that's pretty tanky. Resolve 3, defense 2 with a shield, okay, and their evasion 1. So, kind of a wound sponge unit, not super high in the defense. Like, you're not getting into, like, defense 4, resolve 4, kind of, like, into that area and above, but overall, really good. And also being 6 wounds and that little bit of evasion means you're always going to have a save somewhere. They have Forged in Battle, so this is actually kind of an interesting one that I was having a quick look at before I was starting this recording. Forged in Battle. Somewhere around here. Does it just go Deadly Blades and then Fearless? Oh, there it is. When the regiment resolves this draw event, it may choose a tier 1 battlecry belonging to either its own cult or the Cult of Conquest. Teach regiment as a chanted battle cry with effect, but do not discard any chant markers. The draw event may not be resolved as the regiment already chanted battle cry this round. So you just auto get Cult of Conquest chant or whatever chant they are, and I believe the is war. So war is either +1 attack or clash or something, but also tier 1 conquest is just +3 speed, so they're zipping along. So overall, I like that. Just a draw event. You don't have to spend any tokens on it. You're just doing it. You just get it on veterans. And that's probably why they're that 200 point cost. But overall, I really like this unit. And the Chieftain, taking that unit is pretty good because it kind of keeps them alive because it's a tankier unit, but also can do some output. Now let's go back to the top. He's running a Matron Queen with the Brood of Ogorok. OMG Orok. So that basically means the Matriarch Queen is on a Raptor, and she's going to be joining a Raptor unit. She's in death, so all her stuff is in death. Her draw event to the last breath just heals 4 wounds. This does happen. It's actually kind of funny. I do charge in, and I do like 4 wounds of damage to my opponent. Like, I heal it all when I draw the character. I'm like, God damn it. Just Cruise the Towers, come on, man. You did 2 damage on your charge, and then you did another damage on the resolve check, and then the Matriarch Queen is like, nah, it's all healed. The Raptors are fine. I'm like, God damn it. Next, we have the Blooded. It's just an MSU of Blooded with the Standard Bearer. We got an MSU of Hunters who have a Flint Napper, so they get to reroll their 6s, and an Apex Predator. I like this warband. You know, you got a medium score, you got some range, you got your heavy dino, you got your running around on your Raptor Riders. Oop, there it is with a Huntress. Then you have your Predator, who has Hunting Pack, Raptor Riders, Slingers, and another Apex Predator right down there. So this one's more focused on, I think these are all lights except for the Predator. Yep. So that's the only heavy. So this is kind of like what you're bringing on early on. The Predator and the Slingers is really good because he helps them out. Animalistic Focus gives them like True Shot. You got Conquest there. Another unit of Raptor Riders running around is always fun. Hunting Pack. Hunting Pack move really far because they have Vanguard. My opponent's like, yeah, they're just going to run like 21 inches. I'm like, what? Run 21 inches? So what is it here? 8, 16. 16 plus 8 is 24? I'm doing that right? Yeah, it's 24 inches. Holy crow. No wonder they were so far forward. Problem is you're so far forward and you die, but you kind of pick and choose your fights. Man, this is a fast unit. So yeah, I like Hunting Pack. They're kind of point costed decently at 125 for just being such a far-flung unit. You can shoot up the table and just protect stuff and get in the way. Like, they're not gonna really survive anything because they have like defense 1, evasion 1, resolve 2, and 3 wounds. Like, this is just kill me stats. But they are 6 attacks. They are Clash 2, but they will have shock from the Supremacy, so they go to Clash 3, and then they're going to Inspire to 4. And with their 6 attacks, they'll just start throwing dice at your opponent. And I had them charge in and like fight, I think it was Mounted Squires, who have 12 wounds, and got them down to like 5. Like, I had 1 Squire left who was full, and 1 Squire who had like 1 wound left, and then they were ceremoniously killed off by like some Raptor Riders who just shot at them. It was like great. But overall, Hunting Pack, I like. They're good. Slingers, still good. They've changed Slingers up a little bit so that instead of taking resolve on each hit, like wound done to you, you now take resolve on each or every 2 wounds done to you. So this kind of balances them out a bit better. So it's not like you got close, you get torrential fired for that additional hit, and then you just get all these all these resolve checks on you that I've just had units wiped off the table from Slingers who just, like, they roll a ton, they make it, and then I roll and I fail a bunch, and it's just like that unit's dead and there's nothing I could have done. They are Volley 3 still, really good. Barrage 4 with 18 inches. I do have to mention the torrential fire also has changed, so it's 1 additional wound for every 2 hits instead of every hit is additional wound. So they've kind of toned down the damage output, but this is still a really good unit to use, and I do like it. With that, I'm just gonna roll down through the rules, and you can check out which rule you like at your own leisure. Pause the video if you want to read something that I didn't talk about. I didn't talk about Unstoppable, but this regimentary rule failed charge rules. There you go. And with that, we're going to go check out the scenario. Here's the scenario. Today we're playing Scenario 12, Grind Them Down. If this battle report comes before episode 3 of the podcast, we actually rate this one, I believe, pretty highly, like number 3 on some of like the best scenarios. Like, it's actually really good. And if it comes out after the podcast, I suggest you go listen to the podcast. It's about scenario. It's episode 3 of the Bonk Table podcast, and I think a lot of people will enjoy that one because we talk about what's going on in scenario, because that's It's how you win the game. You can't just table your opponent anymore. You have to play scenario and get enough points. So with this scenario, I do have to mention that you are playing a hammer and anvil style deployment. So you're coming from the sides here. So there's an arrow, bloop, and there's an arrow, bloop. And your scenario elements are these four that we're keeping that one. I'm not deleting it. These 4 6-inch zones right here, and then this 1 12-inch zone right here. I like this because you kind of like run up and grab these zones as you're trying to get towards this 12-inch zone, and you either like do what I'm drawing here, where you kind of come in, hit the 6-inch, and then you loop to the middle, or if there's like, there probably is going to be terrain. I'll use this color, terrain here, kind of blocking you. Like, these are also really good spots to put terrain and kind of affect the table so that it changes how you deploy into this and what zones you can easily capture. And that's why I like this one. And those are the zones you're fighting for as well. And so there's a bunch of places you can do where it interacts with terrain and also how you score. So for scoring, you get 3 VPs for that 12 in the middle. So that, you know, it's kind of important because you need more VPs. While you only get 2 for the 6-inch zones on the side. So it kind of incentivizes you. Whoever controls the 12-inch zone and the 2 back zones is going to be the one in control of the game. Additionally, you gain 2 VPs if you're seizing 2 or more ejective zones. So your opponent's probably going to get these 2 at the back, but if you can control the one in the middle here, then you're going to be having a good time because you're just going to be up on points. And if you ever kind of force your opponent off one of these, the rich get richer kind of deal. And also it allows you to kind of push yourself forward more because you have such a great distance between everyone because you're playing 6 feet across from each other's deployment zones. Additionally, players gain 2 BPs if they killed the enemy Warlord, 2 BPs for every character stand killed, and you gain 3 BPs for every 2 enemy regiments that you've destroyed during the round. So I'm going to highlight the round. So if you kill a regiment last turn, it doesn't count towards this for this turn. So you have to be looking for killing 2 regiments basically a turn to benefit from that scoring option. I don't mind it because what usually happens is there's a big brawl in the middle here, and that's where the game's decided, and that's where a lot of people are going to be fighting and dying. So it's not too hard to do that, to kill 2 regiments each turn to score those 3 VPs. And if you're lucky, maybe you'll kill 4 regiments and you'll just get more VPs. Overall, I like the scenario. There's a lot of play. There's a lot of places to put terrain. There's things you got to look at and also counter for your opponent. And with that, let's go check out the table to show you what terrain was actually on the table when we played this. Here's the table, just to show you where the zones are. So we got that zone over there, that zone over there, that zone over there, and that guy over there, as well as the 12-inch zone right in the middle. For terrain, we have 2 garrison build terrain who can take 4 stands each, right here. These guys are basically butted up against the edge of the table. I don't know if they can go there or not, but it does create a bit of an issue for me later on as the game's played, and I will explain that in a moment, but I just want to finish off terrain here. We have a size 3 building here, and we got a size 2 obstructing woods right there. So I deployed on this side, so I'll kind of explain a bit, but this table kind of has a couple lanes. So there are lanes between these 2 objectives, kind of strutting the side of that garrison right there, as well as these 2 objectives strutting that side of the garrison right here as well. It's very asymmetrical, this table. What's not bad, something I do appreciate this table is that these 2 buildings right here, like these 3-size buildings, are blocking the way, so you can't just run right up into the middle of the table. You do have to kind of go around them to get there, and you kind of want to do that to get there. I didn't get set up this table, our local Vanguard did, so this is kind of what we played on. For the big issue I had is that this table is 4 feet across, except the place you're going to be fighting in the middle is only 3 feet across because these 2 garrisons those where you can put 4 stands in each, are squishing that, so I'm kind of in a bottleneck when you're trying to go through the middle. And it just, like, more stuff kind of gets clumped and pushed into itself as it tries and gets into the middle of the table here. Either from the sides, running up the table, like, you're getting more and more bottlenecked. And you're kind of stepping on your feet a little, and you're trying to, like, kill your opponent's stuff or have your things die when you need them to die so that you can put other things to replace them as you fight for the middle for this table. And that was kind of what I was dealing with from this, and it was kind of like both of us, like my opponent and I, we were just like bottlenecked into this big fight in the middle. So it was very much, can you score your back zones and can you hold this middle while being funneled into it? Like, that's where all the roads lead, right into the middle of this table. And with that, I am good to go to turn 1. Here's the end of turn 1. As you can see, I took my picture from the side instead of basically 4 feet away from each other, just so that it's just easier to see and you kind of move up and continue with it. My opponent had like 4 cards, I had 2. I autoed in a mounted squire unit, and then I rolled the 4 down, and I was like, okay, well, I guess I get another mounted squire unit. Cool. And that's all I had for lights anyway. I then had my opponent, they got their Predator right over there with the unit of Slingers, 1 unit of Raptor Riders, and their Brood of OMG Raptor Rider unit right there. If you're wondering where this Raptor Rider is, they're just over here. They kind of snapped off the base. I believe that model gets glued back on later. Forget if it does. I think it might. So, to start with, I'm just running up the side of the table. As you can see, like, I move this unit over so that it doesn't touch the garrison, and I just move this one up here. If I was to redo this, because I do kind of step on my own feet, because mounted squires are speed 9, they're going to get +1 movement from the banner, so they're going like 19 inches. This unit on the left here should have been probably about here going forward, just so that I don't hit this garrison, because that's exactly what happened. Like, I got to that garrison, like I ran, and then I just wheeled and then kind of kept going forward. Like, that's what happens the next couple turns, but I could have saved myself a ton of hassle by just being, I use this color, over here. Like, and that's really it. Like, your deployment matters. You got to think a couple turns ahead and really look at what is in my way, how do I want to get there. And on the left there, I do mess it up. I do recover it, but I could have changed it up. My opponent just runs up the table, you know, with their Raptor Riders. Scoring doesn't start until turn 2, but my opponent is already looking to score that with the Matron Queen over here. So I believe next turn he just moves up a little bit, does a reform, and just moves the Queen onto the other side so that he can score. And overall, that's just turn 1. Like, we're just vying for positioning, we're looking at it. Due to a hammer and anvil style table and scenario, more things are going to be on the table before people actually start fighting. You're going to just see a lot of more moving and trying to, like, keep things alive before the fights really start happening. With that, let's move to turn 2. Here's turn 2. And I only have 2 mediums in my list, and that is the big brick of House of Knights that are located over here on the right, and this little brick of House of Knights that are located right here on the right. Or sorry, not the right, the left. I just auto bring on the little brick because I don't want to bring out my big hammer brick yet, because I want to wait. Like, cavalry hammers waiting longer before they strike just gives you a better opportunity, and to force myself not to just get aggressive with it and actually pace myself properly, I choose the MSU unit of Household Knights, because then the big brick unit isn't on the table for me to just throw away faster through my own, like, oh, I gotta get him now, like, this is the perfect time. And it's not, because I'm running them too far forward and they're getting countercharged and killed. So that's why I only bring in the MSU unit, and it can score, so it's just currently sitting on the objective right there. For my opponent, they bring on, I believe, the remainder of all their lights and the remainder of all their mediums. So it's just their heavies left, and you can see the dinos on the left side of the table right there, being all cute together. And they got their chieftain, Warlord, right there, with their unit of veterans. They have the hunting pack hiding behind the woods right here. They got hunters right over here, and a unit of blooded right over there. So we grab our cards, we sort our decks, and we roll to see who goes first. I believe I make my opponent win the roll-off, He draws a card, slaps it on the table, and is like, character go. And I'm like, oh, sweet. So something that I was doing and looking at was I was looking at my reinforcement line. Because I wanted to do the wheel onto the table and then march forward. And that's what these knights basically did, because my reinforcement line was about, I don't know, about there-ish. That's a terrible line. Oh my god. I don't know. About there-ish. Wherever they were. Like, this is 18 inches up, so yeah. Probably like about here. So you'll see in a couple other photos, I have like a 4-inch stick that I use. One of these guys in the bottom right to just tell me where my reinforcement line is. Cavalry running up the table so far, and then trying to support yourself with more cavalry coming in from the sides of the table, like wheeling on and then marching, is kind of nice to get your cavalry moving forward. I set that line. I have my mounted squires on the left here. They run up and then wheel, as you can see, so that they can get around this garrison. My opponent then starts moving up stuff. I believe they move up their Raptor Riders with the Matron Queen. They just walk and they reform so that she can score that. I then run up my mounted squires just to here. Let me just change the color really quick. There we go. They just run up right to there. And the reason why they're there is because I'm actually out of walk and shoot range of both the Raptor Riders here and the Slingers over here. And that's what I was looking for. My opponent then just like moves up the Raptor Riders to be relevant and maybe charge me next turn. I then wheel onto the table, as you can see on the left here, and then just march the MSU Household Knights right to there. Score that zone, get those points, you know. And that's it for all my activations. Then my opponent goes, and I basically just sit for 20 minutes. Because that's what I was doing. My opponent then just, I believe, brings up the Slingers just a bit, trying to be wary, trying not to get charged by horses just because I am faster than them. Then just kind of runs up the hunting pack. My opponent does do the chant for Conquest, I believe it is, which just gives them more movement. So a lot of chants are going off basically just to run up the table faster, and that's how things get up the table faster. And they slowly start bringing everything up forward, and you can kind of see there is the veterans with the chieftain get brought up. The hunting pack, they just skyrocket up the table and get in front of the slingers. What's really nice, because they're size 1 and not size 2, even though they're on like cavalry brute bases, so the slingers and range units can just fire over them into the mounted squires. And that's what they want to do with that unit. So overall for scoring, Matron Queen scores this zone. I score this zone right over here. And that's it for turn 2. Turn 3 is where the rest of my list, what's all heavies, is going to start coming onto the table. And we're going to probably start seeing some actual clashes and fights going on. Let's go look at that. Here's turn 3. And something I do need to bring up is I believe I screw up the reinforcement line rules. You can see this 4-inch wedge, that's the back of the mounted squires, like the furthest forward mounted squire unit, so that would be my reinforcement line. However, as I played the game and we finished the game, we started talking, I realized that I messed this up. So the battle report, is still going to go out. This is still a good thing to talk about and realize and bring to people's attention, is that heavies can't come onto the table through reinforcement lines on turn 4 off of a light, or maybe at all. It's either one or the other. Like, they have to come off of a medium, or they have to come off from just a regular deployment. So that's a mistake on my part, where I'm playing the game, I'm just like, oh yeah, like the lights did it, the mediums did it, why can't I just have the heavies do it? Because it stayed in the rules and I forgot it when we played the game. So that is bad on me, and that's why I'm bringing it up, because it's something that, people should be made aware of. However, we still continue to play the game, because this was caught at the end when I finally realized it, and I was talking to my opponent about it, and then we oh yeah, reinforcement line. I'm like, oh yeah, that rule. And I flicked through it, the photos that I take for these games. I'm like, oh, you know what? I did do that. I did mess it up. So if the Ashen Dawn here, as you can see, were supposed to reinforcement line properly, then they would have come from about here-ish, where that purple line is, and then move forward. Not as far forward as they currently are. So that's a mistake on my part, and an understanding of, okay, I messed up reinforcement lines. You know, in future games, I'll be looking for that more, especially with heavies. But with that, let's go to the rest of the game. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. So I auto bring on a unit of Ashen Dawn, and then I roll my dice, and I get another unit of Ashen Dawn and a unit of Crimson Towers. And I have one unit of Crimson Towers with the prior commander who have not come onto the table yet. My opponent auto brings on one of their Apex Predators, and then the other one just sits at home because they decided, it's not time yet, I don't want to show up. Things would happen. I believe my opponent wins the roll-off to go first. No, I win the roll-off to go first because I still have less cards than them. I then have to roll 4 up roll for my Mounted Squires, who were sitting here, to then get into the hunting pack. I roll, I get a 2, I roll again, I get another 2, and I move up 2 inches. My opponent goes, draws the hunting pack, and then charges the Mounted Squires, and the hunting pack kills them down to like 1 stand left. And I'm like, okay, well, not the end of the world, there's still 1 stand left, I'll be okay. I draw my next card. I believe I just run the Household Knights just from this objective all the way into the zone because I want to start scoring it. And if my opponent's slingers get into that zone, that means I can easily like just charge them, and also they've given up their 2 activations because they'll have to like march and then rotate and then move up. So if they ever try and get into that zone currently, and they're really the only other thing that could, like maybe the Raptor Riders, but the Raptor Riders on the right here are looking at the Ashen Dawn. Like they haven't gone just yet, and then the Ashen Dawn deploy. So, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So I get into that zone because I want to start scoring it. My opponent then has their Hunters, I believe, go. Or not their Hunters, their Blooded go. They just kind of like, no, not their Blooded. Yeah, no. So, sorry, I'm messing this up. The Raptor Riders go, who move back. Like they just back up to be more in the zone and stay defensively and score that zone. With that, I move my Mounted Squires up to cover the side flank of the Household Knights because I don't want these Hunters to just shoot into them. Or not the Mounted Squires. I don't want them to shoot into the Household Knights because I want them to have that shield for that defense 4. So I put the Mounted Squires in front because I'm not worried about the Mounted Squires dying. Like they're serving their purpose as they're dying because, you know, they're setting that line of engagement by just dying. So my opponent then just moves up the Hunters and just shoots into the Mounted Squires. So that's why there's a stand gone. I then start bringing in Ashen Dawn through the bad reinforcement lines. And that's why they get to that position. The Slingers go. They shoot into these Household Knights right here. Bloop. I lose 1 and I do like one of them's on like 2 health. I then have my I think like some character dead draws, whoop-de-doo. My opponent then has these Raptor Riders go, kill off the last Mounted Squire just with shots. My opponent then has their Blooded run up here, start establishing that line because my opponent doesn't want to deal with the Ashen Dawn, doesn't want to deal with the Crimson Towers, like those are all the dangerous things. And so he's just using the Blooded as a barrier to hope to get the Dinosaur on so that they can fill this spot in the back. Veterans move up, Apex Predator moves up. Like everyone's just kind of vying for positioning and getting into that layered fight right now. And I have my Crimson Towers move up, who then scored this zone on the left here because they run 15 and this is 18 inches up. So they just touch that 3 inches to score it. And the same thing happens with my Household Knights right here. With my Household Knights, I kind of wish I had them moved over a bit more because I would have maintained my 3 wide brick, as you can see. Except I needed to be on a direct line from here to my table edge to score that zone because they're only moving 15 inches. And that kind of pushes me over, and next turn I kind of like get stuck on my Ashen Dawn because of that. But I resolve it and I, kind of move through. With that, things are kind of heating up. We're looking at scoring points, we're setting those lines, we're fighting it out, or we're about to get fighting it out. So next turn is going to be kind of a bit of a fighty turn. But for points, I am scoring these 2 back objectives for 2 points each, as well as another additional 2, and I'm scoring this middle objective for 3 points. So I believe that is 2, 4, 6, 9 points, while my opponent only scores these 2 back objectives for 6 points. And that is the end of turn 3. Let's go have a look at turn 4. Here's turn 4, and we have a couple things that happen. Things that come on for me are the Crimson Towers, and things that come on for my opponent are the Apex Predator. First thing first, my opponent wins the roll-off. Hunting Pack go in and charge the Ashen Dawn right here. They did a point of damage. There's 1 wound on that Ashen Dawn unit right over there. I believe I draw my Household Knights first, so I have this unit go. They just start fighting the Slingers, like they're just attacking. I don't really do much though, because they're only Clash 2, and the Slingers kind of just like go to town on them. As you can see, like one of them's dead. I think one has like 2 health left. Then my Ashen Dawn go. They just kill this Hunting Pack. I'm just like, I'll kill it. Because I'm kind of, like, you can see on the left here, like the other unit of Ashen Dawn basically took the spot of the Mounted Squires. So on the left here, Blooded go, they run in, kill the other 2 Mounted Squires. Ashen Dawn go, they go in, kill the entire unit of Blooded. Once you get a charge off with Ashen Dawn and you go to Cleave 2 because of Wedge, being Cleave 2 on the Cavalry is really nice and can just knock things out of the park with them. Like, they got those beat sticks, and those beat sticks are doing work. Next thing what happens, I believe that's where we get into this fight with the Slingers. They just, beat up horses. My opponent actually has these Raptor Riders shoot into these Household Knights, and I think they're like 2 shots each, and I like save them all and make it. And my opponent got kind of annoyed. It's like, God, just die already. You can see for the Household Knights on the left here at the bottom that I reformed into a 2-wide brick and then marched forward just to get around my Ashen Dawn. Because I wanted my Ashen Dawn to go first to get those Household Knights out of the way. Except, because the Hunting Pack went in, they kind of got stuck where they were. And I'm like, well, the Order of the Crimson Tower are going to go. And they just were like, eh. So now Household Knights had to move around and just get to there. They're still within the 3 inches of the zone, so they're still scoring it. These Crimson Towers go. They literally move just to be within 3 inches of the zone, just touching it, so they score that. My Ashen Dawn, I specifically set them up to charge the Blooded so that they would have a stand on the zone, so I'd be scoring that. And then this is where I believe I get... Do I get my reinforcement lines messed up? No, I don't think so. Actually, I think I can do this right this time. Haha, see, I'm learning. So, Crimson Towers, on the left here, they do a march wheel to swing in, and then I just move up to basically get really close to that garrison, because I'm just going to charge that garrison with a bunch of Crimson Towers next turn to kill all the Hunting Pack in it. Because the Hunting Pack... Not the Hunting Pack, my apologies. The Hunters just shot into the side of the Ashen Dawn, and I don't know if they did any damage. They might have done a wound or 2, but it might be covered up by this arrow. I'm not really sure, but I think they're like downed a wound or 2. And I literally used their Bless to just re-roll all... No, because you can't use Bless on volleys, so yeah, they're just in there. My opponent keeps backing up this Raptor Rider unit, but is still scoring the zone right here. Then it's just movement and positioning, so the Apex Predator on the left kind of moves up. The Apex Predator on the right does this weird finagle dance to kind of get into its spot, because the problem is the Apex couldn't land. I'm just gonna let's use purple. Couldn't land right here. Their base would have been touching this Raptor Rider unit, so that's why my opponent kind of like jimmied them over as far as they did. But still kind of being like, okay, once the Ashen Dawn come, the Apex can go and charge them. And then you have the veterans who are still over there, scoring that zone, being ready to like pick a fight. And that's kind of where we are with turn 4. So we're starting to get those fights up. I'm starting to move my Ashen Dawn forward to fight things and set that wall, and so set up all my hammer units that are coming in from behind, so the 2 units of Crimson Towers and that big bus of Household Knights. My skirmishers are dead or dying. Like, that MSU of Household Knights I consider a skirmisher at this point. And he'll just die off next turn. Like, you can tell the writing's on the wall for that guy. But I'm very much forcing my opponent back while securing the 3 objectives, what are kind of the scoring here. I did kill 2 regiments this turn, like the Hunting Pack and the Blooded, so I got 3 points for that. I have the 2 back zones in the middle zone, so I get my 9 points for that. My opponent only has the 2 back zones for them, so they get their 6 points for that. And my opponent didn't kill 2 regiments to go and score 3 points. Yeah, that's probably why they were annoyed, because that Household Knight's like on 1 or 2 wounds left and he's still alive. And that would have been a nice 3-point jump for their scoring. So that's really just the end of turn 4, and we're going to have a look at turn 5. Turn 5, and everyone is vying for positioning and starting to kill stuff. First thing first, I have my... I believe my Crimson Towers actually activate first, and they charge into this garrison here just to go stop the hunters from shooting and to start killing everything in there. Something I didn't know about garrison terrain is that you can't impact models inside of garrison terrain. So the damage output of brutal impact and all their impact attacks while they have their clash attacks doesn't do anything. So I don't get that half of their damage output. So I'm like, okay, well, not the end of the world. Let's clash them. We check the rules again, and your entire front rank, so that includes this guy who's not even touching the building, gets to enjoy, add, increase, I'll use an addition word, gets to contribute their attacks to the garrison and the models in it. So I attack, I do a bunch of damage, they take a resolve, and there is 1 wound left on that hunter unit in that building who I believe activated first and threw some dice at the Ashen Dawn unit that was sitting here. Let's do a little line. And that was kind of it for them. Opponent has the Slingers go. This is something actually really interesting my opponent did, and I'm really surprised by it. They opted not to inspire, so they just clashed. Like, the Household Knight there was only on like 1 wound, so he just clashes, kills the guy. And then he, for his second action, does a volley. And I was like, what? You can do like a clash and a volley in the same action? He's like, yeah, there's nothing against it. And we talked to the Vanguard and like, yeah, it was good. He could totally do that. So he then shoots a bunch of rocks into this unit of Ashen Dawn, who was back here at this red line here. And I'm drawing this now red and blue line. And I'm like, oh, okay, so I just got pebbled by shots. That's really fun. I then activate my Ashen Dawn, who were in this position, charge, as you can see, into the Slingers. They needed like a 2-up reroll, so I get it. I'm in. I go to Inspire, Clash. I do a bunch of impact attacks. I go to Cleave 2 because I have Wedge, and I just decimate the Slinger unit. They're all dead, even the Predator, so I score points for that. My opponent then, realizing that there's a bunch of Ashen Dawn breathing down his neck, has the Raptor Riders go. They shoot into the Ashen Dawn. I then go and I move this unit of Ashen Dawn up the table, just because they couldn't really, like, I was like, oh, do I march charge? Like, this is really, like, nothing's really close enough. I don't want to, like, march charge and then just get attacked by the dinosaur, because the dinosaur hasn't gone yet. So I opt to just march charge there, so that I can't get side charge because I have this building in my way, or the garrison, just to kind of protect my flank here, and that if that dinosaur ever does want to come in, they have to deal with the Ashen Dawn. And this allows me to just move up the Household Knights just enough to like be covered by the Ashen Dawn and still contribute once there's a hole open, because my opponent then has the Veterans, who were back here, just charge. I think he needed like a 2 or a 3 with a reroll and gets it, and then goes to town onto the Ashen Dawn, who just get attacked by a bunch of stuff, use the blast, take a bunch of damage. So they're kind of getting hit. My opponent, I think I dead draw some characters. My opponent then has the Raptor Riders go from way back here, who needs like a 2 or a 3, rolls it, charges into the Ashen Dawn, gets me in the flank. I don't have a shield on them, so I don't have to worry about losing the shield. I am Resolve 5, so even with a reroll on all my successful saves, I'm still probably going to save a bunch. And I take a bunch of more damage, and I believe that Ashen Dawn is left with like 1 or 2 health, and he's broken. So that kind of sucks for him, but he's holding the line, he's rolling his blast, he's getting there, and I'm like, great, that's what that unit is supposed to do. It's supposed to be my Anvil unit. and it's just taking a lot of damage and a lot of effort from my opponent to dislodge and kill it, because right now it's in the position it needs to be to do its job, what is be an anvil, hold the line, block everything, and start getting to work. And I love it. It's great. The Chonky boys are being chonky. After the Raptor Riders move in, the Crimson Tower, who are back here, just do a march charge, just because it was like 14 inches away and there's no way I can charge that. Like, even if I roll a 6, I still fail. They roll their 12 impact attacks, and I get 2 successes, and then my opponent is resolved like 4 plus size of the unit to 5, and it's just like, okay, I take 3 damage in total. I'm like, sweet, good job, MSU Crimson Towers, you did 3 damage. Like, god damn it. Come on, guys, we have work to do today, and you're not doing any of it. Then the Matron Queen's card gets pulled and just heals up the Raptor Rider to full, and I'm just like, oh my god, you're so useless. I'm just sad. Finally, the last thing my opponent does is just get this dinosaur, wiggles around, like kind of zigzags onto the zone, but also looking to charge my Crimson Towers because they're kind of stuck on the building right now. For scoring, my opponent scores this objective, and I score this zone. That's it. Not much for the scoring count here, but this is where the brawl is, and this is what we're all fighting for over. So this is the end, I believe, of turn 5, and turn 6 we'll find out what those dinosaurs do to contribute to finish this off. Let's go have a look at that. Here's turn 6. I win the roll off to go first, and the order, or not the order, the Household Knight bus charges right up the middle here, hits the veterans with the, was it the chieftain? Yep, there we go. I'm getting my rules right. And does a bunch of damage. The thing I do before that in my supremacy phase, before I forget, is I activate the Priory Commander supremacy ability. So that's kicking off right now. Just so everyone in his warband gets blessed, and if you already have blessed, you get hardened 1 or +1 attack. I mainly use it for hardened 1. But now back to the big thing. Like, this was like that movie cinematic moment where the bunch of knights charge in, smash through the veterans, so they hit. I believe the Noble Lord's like Brutal Impact 2, all the other horses are Brutal Impact 1. My opponent is like either using his Evasion 1 or his Defense 2. I do a ton of damage, like with the 4 rerolling 6s. I think I make all of them except for like 2 or 3, so it's just a ton of dice were rolled. And then he rolls a bunch of his saves at like 2 or 1, and then he just loses a bunch of stuff, and I think 1 stand is left with like 2 wounds, and then he has to roll to resolve at -1, and then it's just dead. Because I wiped out the unit before the unit could act, the chieftain does his fight back and does like a little bit of damage right here. And my second action, I don't really have, like, I'm not clashing anything because I killed everything, so I back up to get more onto the zone, but mainly so that the Apex Predator, who can see his charge the Ashen Dawn, doesn't decide to just like run through everyone and charge the Household Knights into the side, because he can totally see my flank after doing that, and I didn't really want them to die just from a side charge from an Apex Predator, because that Apex Predator will just eat Knights from the side. With that, my opponent, I believe, draws the Apex Predator, realizing that he's not going to get a side charge, and that if he doesn't tie up the Ashen Dawn are going to start running through the rest, so he just front charges the Ashen Dawn. With the Hardened 1 and the Blessed reroll, I only take like 2 wounds, so I'm good. I activate my Ashen Dawn. I'm not worried about activating the Ashen Dawn on the Predator just yet, because I have this 1 unit of Ashen Dawn over here with his 1 wound, and I might as well get my work out of him before he dies. And at that point, I just go, alright, I'm going to use my Blessed on attack rolls, I'm going to get +1 attack, and I'm just going to go full damage output, and I roll 8 dice, 6 base, +1 from leader, +1 from first blessing, and they all hit. Also, I unbreak myself, because why not? And I think I kill like a stand or 2 of Raptor Riders. My opponent fights back with the Raptor Riders into the Ashen Dawn, and I just make all the saves. Like, my opponent cleave 1 from the Matron Queen, I like roll the 3, make it. I'm defense 4 and everyone else, and I make it all, and I just save everything. Like, he's stuck on 1 wound, but he's just being a boss, saving everything. I then draw my Order of the Crimson Tower card, who just Inspire Clash, wipe out the rest of the unit, and at that point the game is called, because my opponent only has 4 regiments left, and the hunters on 1 wound are going to die. The Apex over here is probably like in a march charge to get to me, and he's going to be looking at too many knights and cavalry who are just going to be swinging from this center objective into the raptors, into the Apex, killing the rest of it, and that would be game anyway. So that's kind of game right there. I was bottlenecked due to the 2 buildings, but I still used like layering of giving up stuff, and once the Ashen Dawn got there and started to become that like face tanking anvil, it was very tough for them to break through that, and it allowed my hammers to set up properly so that they could just wipe out things and stay safe and be safe from things that could easily kill them. Let's go check out the score. I didn't grab my opponent's score, but you can see here where I clocked the turn up to 7, so we ended at 6, I just clocked it up. I grabbed the rest of my scoring count, so I'm at 24 plus 15, so that's 39 points. I'll have on the side, like somewhere, my points that my opponent scored when I add this all from editing. I think when we last checked, they were around 20, so I'll find out then. Overall, it's a good game. I like the changes that have been done to horses. I'm not still a huge fan of the Crimson Towers. They still don't really pull their weight for their point cost and what they're doing as well as I would like. And they kind of just seem to be attacks for the thing that I really want, what is the Ashen Dawn. When Sealed Temple come out, I'm going to be really looking at that unit to replace Crimson Towers, because I can get my hammer unit out of the Household Knights, and I can get like scoring units and fast running around units out of Sealed Temple who are also mediums. So I would not be surprised if this list swaps up in the future once more things are released. Ashen Dawn did a phenomenal job just defending, being an anvil, just killing stuff. Like they're just so good. Like they are the 100 Kingdoms premium brawler unit, and they act and feel like it, and that's really nice. Having Blessed and then doing the Supremacy term to give them plus like Hardened 1 or the +1 attack is really nice. Mounted Squires, I didn't get to really attack with Mounted Squires. Like they just got shot up or then charged and killed, but they were kind of like nice, and the big thing I really liked about them was setting that reinforcement line so that you could just come up the table further. I do need to do a double check of the rules to see if you can reinforce your heavies for turns where you're off of your mediums, like if it's still like that, or if it's you cannot reinforce from the side at all on your heavies. And I know we did a podcast episode about this, but like when you're going through so many rules at once, you kind of forget. And also I only get about 4 games a month in on the average, so like I'm not always thinking about Conquest. So I'll have a reread of that. Or if someone wants to like point out in the comments, be like, hey man, these are the actual rules, I'd be like, you know what, thanks, because that's one of the reasons why I do this, is because I don't play as many games as I would like or have for miniature wargaming in the past. And this just helps me learn the game, because, you know, like I talk about it, I review what I did, I'm like, oh, you know, that was a mistake, like I did mess up the reinforcement line, like that is a mistake, and you know, I pointed it out because, hey, that's not how it's played. Would it have changed much in this game? Maybe, but also maybe not. Like the Ashen Dawn would have been further back, but then I would have just rode the Ashen Dawn forward and have all my hard hitters behind them waiting for that, and just redo the same thing that already happened in this game. So I like them. They're really good. Read up on your rules. So yeah. Mounted Squires though. I like them because they push up the reinforcement line. I need to play them more because I didn't have an opportunity to do the thing that they do, what is kind of do flank and rear charges, and I didn't get to do the Court Palatine or anything like that for the Inspire. So maybe I drop Veterans and Court Palatines off of them, and I Veterans that MSU unit of Household Knights, but I don't even want to Veterans them because they're just like, they're an MSU and they don't get super buffed the way the other big brick of Household Knights did, like the bus. Have you ever been hit by a bus before? Well, let me tell you, Household Knights with all those buffs do hit like a truck. Yeah, overall I liked it. For my opponent, I think they kind of got stuck on themselves a couple times, just like stepping on their feet. Their lights weren't durable enough to like take charges and die. When they did charge though, they were doing work, but once they hit my house or my Ashen Dawn, that was kind of where a lot of my opponent's steam kind of stopped coming out, and they just hit a wall at that point. If you're playing into this, I think you gotta slow feed the Ashen Dawn horses just random nonsense garbage, and then have your heavy hitting units try and get around the Ashen Dawn and go for the Household Knights, the Crimson Tower, anything that's like doing damage, and just like slowly bleed the Ashen Dawn out. I don't know if that's really like a good answer to them though, because like you need something like even harder hitting to kill Ashen Dawn for what they're doing with their defense 4 and like less rerolling defensive. Or you got to hit them with a lot of things at once. So you run something hard in there, you hit it, and then you follow up with a second thing to hit them, because they're probably going to spend their blessed on the first one. And if they, let's say, don't, they take a bunch of damage, and then they spend their blessed on the second one. Okay, well now you're engaged. So I think my opponent should have deployed both Apex Predators on one side to really just like hammer punch that side of the table for them. The table being kind of cramped with that 3 feet in the middle was really rough, because we couldn't really get around flanks, and everyone just had to like face everyone face to face. Like it was just front butt to front butt. I don't know what I'm talking about. Front butt to front butt. But yeah, overall, good game. I had fun here, and I hope people enjoy this battle report. If you want to see some more content, got a YouTube channel, got a bunch more battle reports. We also got a podcast, Bonk Table Podcast. You can find it on like iOS, Amazon Music, Google Play, anywhere you listen to podcasts. It's out there. And I hope you guys have a great day. Bye.